Hi everybody, welcome back. Stu Clark here. Another glorious day here on Vancouver Island. So today we're going to look at shutter angle and how to set it effectively on the Nikon Z8. So as a hybrid shooter, the main goal of setting up my camera is I want to be able to go out and with a flick of switch, basically flick from photo to video, and I can press the button and record. And I want to make it as smooth as possible. As a wildlife photographer predominantly, that's how I make my living as a professional wildlife photographer. Photos are my primary goal. Video is secondary. What I want to be able to do, and I'm sure a lot of you are going to be in the same boat. You're photographers, you're out taking photos, but you want to catch some quick video. And you flick the switch to video and you frame rates, everything's a mess. And if you watched, I did a Shooting Bank A setup video the other day. This is kind of a part of that. And this setting is a beautiful thing once you've got it all figured out, once you get it all set up. So how I have my camera configured is my Shooting Bank A is 120 frames per second video. My Shooting Bank B is 30 frames per second video. My Shooting Bank C is 60 frames per second video. And my Shooting Bank D is 24 frames per second video. The Shooting Bank A video is up, B, C, and D are coming, and that'll explain why I've picked those. For the sake of this video, the setting makes it so that you get the right shutter speed for whenever you're in each of those video banks. If you're on a lot of forums right now, you'll notice that you see a lot of questions being asked about how best to set the camera, settings, this and that, and you get the classic, read the manual reply to a lot of them. It's this setting, I have not seen anybody comment on it. And to try and go through a 1,000-page manual, trying to figure out what this setting is, and this is a situation where I think Nikon has mislabeled this setting. If you're new to videography, if you're new to filmmaking, shutter angle is one of those things that it can be kind of confusing, but it will come up a lot. You'll see everyone talking about 180-degree shutter angle particularly. Basically refers to the old rotary shutter back in the day for filmmaking and how much of the film was being exposed at any one time. That side of it is kind of irrelevant in today's world of digital cameras, but the premise behind it still holds true. So in 24 and 30 frames per second particularly, what you want to do, you need to set your shutter speed twice the frames per second of your video. So if you're shooting at 30 frames per second video, you need your shutter speed in camera for the video at 1/60th of a second. If you're shooting at 24 frames per second video, you need your shutter speed set at 1/50th of a second in camera. When you get into 60 frames per second and 120 frames per second, it all depends on whether or not you plan on slowing it down. If you're not going to slow it down and you want to just play it on a 60 frames per second timeline, there are some arguments to be had there on how you should set your shutter speed. But we're going to, for the sake of this, we're going to look at 24 and 30 at real time. And then we're going to look at 120 and 60 where you're going to be slowing it down. And that's where this kind of comes into play here. Why you need this and why it's so important, especially in the lower frame rates. What happens is, say you're shooting on a bright sunny day and you've got, it's 1/1000th of a second is your shutter speed on a 24 frame per second timeline. What happens is every frame of the 24 frames per second is sharp, every one. So what happens is you end up and you see this kind of stuttering effect with movement, and you'll actually get kind of, it's almost like you get like multiples. Gerald Undone did an amazing video on it a couple of years ago where he had a spinning stick, and it was great. I definitely suggest have a look at that video and kind of get into particulars of why you need to set shutter angle. What you want with the 1/60th of a second shutter speed on a 30 frames per second timeline, you have a natural blur on each frame so that as you get motion in the frame, it looks really natural. And you're not getting this, there's no stuttering to it, there's no jitteriness. And like I said, not every frame's not sharp. It's got kind of motion blur between each frame. So you get this really nice, smooth, natural motion. And it's a really important setting. Some people might not even see it. It's a funny thing. It depends on the person. Some people don't mind it. It was something that I struggled with initially because I'd hear it being talked a lot about. But a lot of my early videos were on owls. So it'd be an owl sitting in a tree, not moving. So you're hearing people talk about shutter angle and how important it is. If there's virtually no movement in the video, completely irrelevant. You can shoot any shutter speed you want. It doesn't, you just won't see it. But anytime you have motion, so where you'll really notice it, you're down at the duck pond, you get a mallard flapping its wing to dry itself off, you'll really see the stutter. You'll really see it kind of, you'll see that motion. It's almost like there's duplicate wings kind of flapping back and forth. So that's where setting the shutter angle and this setting on the Nikon Z8, if you go into custom settings menu, it's under the video, so under G3. And said they also have this under photo, and I would never use it for photos, especially photography I do. But under video, it has control lock, and then it has, you can lock the shutter speed. And so this allows you to effectively set the shutter angle for video. With that 180-degree shutter angle, with the Nikon, so with my Shooting Bank A, like I said, 120 frames per second video, 20 frames per second raw. You flick the switch. Ideally, what you want to have with the 120 frames per second video is 1/250th of a second shutter speed. Problem is, you can have your Shooting Bank set up perfectly. Inevitably, you're out in the field, you flick the switch to shoot some video, shutter speeds are all over the place. They will not be where you think they are. It's just the nature of the beast. You're out shooting a lot, things happen, you're changing settings. So how you set it, what you need to do is basically, so for my Shooting Bank A, go to video, set the shutter speed at 1/250th of a second. Then go into the custom settings menu, scroll down to video, go to G3, go to the shutter speed lock and turn it on. That, from now on, in Shooting Bank A, when you flick that switch and go to video mode, your shutter speed will be locked at 1/250th of a second. One more setting you just don't have to worry about, which is just great because video, video is one of those things that you flick the switch and you don't want to be messing with too many things. If you want to just, you've got that flyover, you're taking photos and you want to quick flick of the switch to get some video of it as it's landing. This will enable you to do that. It's a huge, I don't know why. This should be called shutter angle. I don't know why it's called control lock and shutter speed lock. This absolutely should be called shutter angle. Hopefully now that they've acquired Red, you might see some changes on the video menus on Nikon cameras because this is a huge setting. Otherwise your shutter speeds are everywhere. So for my Shooting Bank B, 30 frames per second, go into the video mode, set it at 1/60th of a second shutter speed, open up the custom settings menu, Bank B, go down to control lock, shutter speed lock, turn it on. My Shooting Bank C at 60 frames per second, same thing, go into Shooting Bank C, set my shutter speed at 1/60th of a second in video mode, go to control lock, turn the shutter speed lock and turn it on. Shooting Bank D, 24 frames per second, set the shutter speed at 1/50th of a second in video, go down to the custom settings menu, go down to video, G3, control lock, turn the shutter lock on. Now, every time you're out and you flick the switch to video, no matter what mode you're in, you'll be at the correct shutter speed for that video setting. Like I say, it's one of those things, I have not seen it in any video that I've watched on all the different settings on the camera. I'm sure it's out there, I'm sure people are talking about it, but I just happened to have missed it. I've probably been, bald eagle calling, very cool. Yeah, this is a spot, used to be a barred owl nest in this valley. Unfortunately, the female passed away on the nest last February. You can actually still see her feathers in the nest, which is really sad. But there's an eagle nest above here, which is pretty cool. So yeah, there's kind of the like I say, it's one of those settings. I don't know how it got missed. I don't know why it's not. It should be shutter angle in the video menu. Set it, you're good to go. Huge time savings, and also just it makes it so your setting's going to be right. You head out the door, you want to switch to video, and you're going to have the right shutter speed right away. It's just awesome. There you go. Tip of the day. Please like and subscribe to keep up to date with my channel and help me get to 1,000 subscribers. Cheers. Thanks.